Hey everybody, it's the Joy of Wrestling. Paul Fontaine here, along with Sam Schipman from the Powerbombshells. I've got a woman in the house. It's great.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you were one of the first people that volunteered to do this when you heard about the concept of the show. So I've been looking forward to this since we originally talked.
Yeah.
And for those that have never listened or watched, just the idea of this show is, there's so much of the stuff that goes into podcasts and, the discourse around pro wrestling these days is, tribalism, AEW versus WWE, stardom, and, marigold and, all that. So I just wanted to have something that brings us back to, the purity of being a fan and things that just made us happy as wrestling fans. And we've had a great variety of stuff in 4 episodes, and this is the fifth one now. We had talking about like old school stuff, and we had some newer stuff, and and I even try to, at the end of every episode, try to come up with some like really new stuff. But Sam, I'm really excited about this one because I think it's funny because all this tribalism that we deal with now, like it what we're going to talk about here is, I think, what originally started it, but it wasn't meant to be that way.
Right.
And unfortunately, just things happen, and competitiveness and everything. But you want to talk about a show that you attended.
hmm
Yeah, which was.
Which was All In, the
Yes.
precursor to AEW.
Yeah, exactly. 2018 in Chicago.
hmm
So
Yeah,
that's a long trip for you.
it was. Yes, my sister and I flew up. We met with, actually, it was funny because tickets went on sale on, I think it was like Mother's Day, and I was at a Charlotte Knights game with my sister and my mom, and we had a group of friends. We were all wanted to go to All In, and so they knew we were unavailable, and so they were trying on their phones to get tickets, and they were able to get tickets for all of us to go. And so
Oh
we
wow.
all, so my sister and I came up. We had two friends from the Atlanta area come up, and we had two friends from Tennessee go up. And so we all flew in separately, but we all stayed with each other. And like at the hotel, we stayed, some of us stayed in the room together. And so then we traveled around together, because we ended up staying at not the hotel where they were doing Starcast. We were like a mile away from that. And then we would just go in to do like the different Starcast panels
Yeah.
or things that we had paid for. We did those things. And then, of course, we all went to the show together.
So you bought tickets Mother's Day, so that's May. Shows
Right.
in September.
hmm
You bought tickets basically on faith
Yes.
that
Yes.
you were going to have a good show, because
Yes.
again, at the time, I mean, we had WWE was, pretty much the only game in town. I mean, Ring of Honor was, it was an alternative, but it was not. It was, they smaller shows, hard to get
Yeah.
to. They didn't run that often.
Right.
And it wasn't a big production like this was going to be. Was
Right.
this, now refresh my memory, the ROH did that MSG show? They did two, right?
I
Or did they
think
just do the
I
one?
think it was just the one, I want
Okay,
to
so
say. I'm
that
not
was
sure.
after All In then, because that was the next year.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
Okay.
because we
Yeah.
actually we bought tickets and we're gonna try to go. We had tickets for Madison Square Garden, and then we ended up, for various reasons, we all couldn't go, and so we had to
I
let
Me too.
we had to sell our tickets, which we
Yeah.
hated, because and then
Yeah.
we were like, well, I guess it's all right since the Bucks did. But we knew, like, they never announced the Young Bucks were
Yeah.
gonna be there, which I know people obviously bought tickets on the assumption, but I was like, well, they never said. So we were all kind of under the impression they could be there, but they're not announcing it, so they may not be there. So we weren't disappointed, because we were just like, but I know a lot of people got disappointed because they just assumed that that's what was going to happen, and then it didn't.
Yeah. Well, I bought a ticket as well, and for me it wasn't so much like I kind of knew the Bucks weren't going to be there, even as far back as when I bought the ticket. But for me it was just, I wanted to go to Madison Square Garden,
Right.
and and to see ROH, which I'm an ROH historian, right? Um
Exactly.
I wanted to see ROH on a big stage. I wanted to see the New Japan people coming in and everything, but
Right.
I just couldn't get to New York, so I ended up
Right.
selling my ticket. But back to All In. So this is, it started out as Cody Rhodes on Twitter with Dave Meltzer on a bet.
Uh-huh.
Can you draw 10,000 people to an indie show?
Mhm.
Now, you, Sam, are a huge wrestling fan, obviously. You write for Daily DDT. You do a podcast on this
Yep.
network. But you don't watch Pretty much. Like you'll check out some WWE if you hear a reason why, but
Right now, I am currently, because I have picked up another, so since I've been writing for Wrestling Inc. as well,
oh,
and
okay.
I do watch WWE because I help with coverage for them.
Okay.
On I have been back into it since January. I got back in. I've
Blood
been
money.
watching,
Just
and
kidding.
so
But back then, like you did not, right?
I
Like,
was watching it for a while, and then I checked out for good. Or, well, for a while at least, when it was around the time that um I had actually stopped watching Raw and SmackDown, just because it got to the point where I just did not like a lot of what was happening, and then I quit watching NXT when the week after Johnny Gargano's last match. That was just
oh,
kind of because, yeah, so NXT 2.0 was just not for me,
oh, so you
and
were
so
still watching. Okay, so
I
okay,
was, yeah, I was still watching to an
okay.
extent, and then I quit for, so I think I wanna say it was October 2020 maybe
Oh, okay,
that I
okay. So
stopped
so at the
watching.
time of All In, you were still
Yeah, at the
watching
time of All In,
WWE.
I was still
Okay,
watching, yeah, but I
okay.
was going to, like, ROH was coming to my area. They were coming to an arena like 30 minutes from my house, and so I was going to ROH shows. I had gotten into New Japan about 2016, and so, like, I that was where, like, I was watching WWE, but I was really invested in, like, that type of, like, indie wrestling and ROH and New Japan, and so that's why this show really got my attention, because it was people I loved watching. And I
And
was watching Being in the Elite as well, and so
okay,
I was
okay.
watching, like, so of
From the
course some of the
beginning, or did you catch up?
we I started roughly around episode 50,
Okay,
but then I
okay.
did go back and watch the first few episodes just to kind of see what it was. And, like, at the beginning, they had no clue what they were doing.
No,
They were
no, no,
just
no.
they
Yeah.
were just recording and having a good time, and then it eventually evolved and kept evolving. And so, but at that point, I was watching BTE, so I was watching, like, obviously some of the storylines were coming together through BTE,
Yeah.
and so, like, all that hype from Ring of Honor and going to Ring of Honor shows, and, like, Cody had come wrestle he had wrestled at my local indie show, and I
Oh.
got to meet him, and he was wonderful. He
Yeah.
was really, really nice, and met him again at an ROH show, and did a I went to ROH in Atlanta and did a meet and greet with the Hung Bucks. And so, and
Oh,
Hangman
so
used to
jealous.
before he was Hangman and he was just Adam Page. He wrestled at my local promotion for several years, so he kind of got his start in this area. And so that was another thing, was like, okay, well, I watched him at this, to this level so far, and then, like, and obviously seeing him join the Bullet Club and things like that. And so that was, like, even though I was watching WWE, this was where my interest was at.
So you're yeah. And what I feel is like the marketing campaign around that show, like you had, and I wasn't, I'll admit, I wasn't following it as closely as a lot of like you and other people were at the time,
Hmm.
but I've since gone back and kind of researched it a bit. And I did go back and watch BTE during the pandemic. I started at episode 1 and I ended up catching up.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of like got a sense of what that all was. And when I got to the point of All In, I actually watched the show just so I could kind of like keep up. And then I watched the
Right.
show after and everything. So, but I did watch All In at the time as well. But what I remember was they, you would have the wrestlers, and usually I guess it would be on BTE, but it would be sometimes on social media. You would all
Hmm.
of a sudden see, like Adam Page is All In,
Yeah.
MJF is All In, and that
Right.
would mean okay, they're going to be on the show. You don't know what match they're going to have. It didn't
Right.
matter. They're going to be on the show.
Right.
And that was the thing. And then, but what was also happening was you bought your tickets.
Hmm.
Some people were buying the pay-per-view. When you bought your ticket, Sam Shipman is All In.
Right.
And people would post that as well. And
Yes.
I remember even myself at one point, I think I watched the final stuff, the build to Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis, and I was such a big Cody Rhodes fan, and I'm so jealous that you got to meet him because I never have. And I remember when I decided I'm going to buy the pay-per-view, I posted on Facebook, Paul
Yeah.
Fontaine is All In. And
Right.
and everyone knew what I was talking about, and there, a
Yeah.
lot of love and everything. So what I think happened was, because that was like the spiritual precursor to AEW, I think what the fans that bought in right from the beginning, and the fans that bought tickets on faith, and the fans that bought this pay-per-view in record numbers for a non-WWE show,
Hmm.
they took ownership of this company in a way.
Right. Yeah.
It was Tony Khan's company. The Bucks are the EVPs,
Right.
Cody, Hangman, or Kenny. But I mean, the fans themselves They felt
Yes.
like we helped create this. And
Right.
that's, I think, why people are so invested in AEW and
Mhm.
in its success. And
Yes.
that's maybe what's leading to kind of what's going on now,
Right.
but I do think that it's important. And it's why you and others
Mhm.
will always feel a special relationship with
Yes.
this company.
Absolutely. Because I remember thinking, like, being in the venue at that show and just I've never been at a wrestling show with that type of energy before. Like, it was just
Wow.
constant buzzing and just everybody was happy and it was positive, like, the entire time. And, like, when Cody Rhodes came out,
Oh,
before his match with Nick Aldis, that was I have never felt that before at a wrestling show. Like, if I don't know if you've been to, like, NASCAR or a race where you
no.
feel like when like the cars are going around the laps, like you can feel it, like it feels like it's coming out of your chest. That's what Cody Rhodes's entrance felt like. Like it
You
was
could
just
feel it watching it.
it
Like,
like
I was in tears
right. And I
watching, yeah.
yeah, and it was just like I've never felt that way at a wrestling show before or since. Like nothing has ever come close to that feeling. And I think that was part of the reason that was easy to because then you want to bottle that and be like, this is what I want from wrestling. Like, I want to feel like this. And like, I've been to AEW shows since then and they've all been great, but nothing will ever, I mean, even of course, I think maybe Sting's retirement match probably comes the closest to that,
Yeah.
but it still didn't because it was just, there was such an electricity in that building because I think, like you said, fans bought into it and we all felt like, I remember being and then I was like, this is what professional wrestling can be. Like it can be what the fans want. It could be for the fans because that was at the time of WWE. I felt like weren't listening to their fans and
No.
just I did. And so this feels like okay, these people get it. Like they
Yeah.
understand. We all have the same love and passion for wrestling. And AEW did kind of keep with that spirit for the first couple of years. And I do, and I still love AEW. It's still one of my favorites, but it's gotten a lot away from a lot of that original feeling. And of course you can't turn down like Brian, you can't not sign Brian Danielson or Adam
No.
Cole, but so I
Or
often
even
think about
Mercedes, like, you have to.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, and so I feel like sometimes I wonder like had AEW not gone that route, like if they continued down the route that they were going, like what would AEW look like now? Who would be like I'm sure that, Scorpio Sky probably would have been a champion, would have been like a bigger
Yeah.
champion by now. And they would have, best friends or Proud and Powerful probably would have had the tag team titles by now. You would have seen like different stars getting pushed and that would be bigger deals now. And you saw it with Hangman, I think, because Hangman's obviously he was an original, he was there from the beginning. And so we did see that kind of play out with him. But I
Dark
do
Order.
yeah, right, exactly, and so sometimes I wonder, like, what would AEW look like now if they had not signed the people that they signed and, like, just continued on the path, and, like, if AEW ever gets on a streaming service where we can go back and watch those shows, like, I was like, "Of course, I've watched every episode, but there's been so much wrestling that's happened in the last 5 years, I don't necessarily remember everything, and so I kinda wanna go back and watch and just see, like, this is the path they were headed down until Brian Danielson and Adam Cole and Ruby Soho showed up, and this is what they were doing. And then because even Mox played into that, but Mox, because of the way because he's so different than he wasn't Dean Ambrose anymore. And so Mox kind of played into this
Almost like
feeling
a
of
completely
what
different
AEW
person. Yeah.
yeah, and so he's played into what AEW was originally meant to be. So I don't feel like signing him changed the trajectory as
No.
far as like
Even
I think he just
Claudio, I think, was along that way because he wasn't
right.
Cesaro, he was Claudio.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly, and so sometimes I do feel like AEW has gotten away a little, somewhat from the original concept, but I still feel like, but again, like you can't say no, like you can't not
Yeah,
sign a
yeah.
lot of the people
Well,
that
and
they
even
sign, like it would
Danielson, like, Danielson is more, like, doing his ROH character, but
sure,
I do think that a lot of him and even, like, with the Yes, Yes, and stuff, like,
uh-huh,
it's a hybrid, even though he's Bryan Danielson, and even though
sure,
they kind of try to ignore the fact that he was in WWE for 10 years, um, or however long it was,
right,
he still picked up stuff there that's changed and made him a better worker for sure,
right,
but it's different, like, it's
yes,
not, and I think, yeah, I get what you're saying, and I agree. But going back to that show,
mhm,
so you're talking about the feeling, and for me, the only thing that I've attended, and I don't think it was as strong as what you're talking about, but Takeover Dallas,
mhm,
with Nakamura and Sami Zayn
yeah,
and Finn Balor and Samoa Joe
yes,
and Bailey and Asuka. Like
Mhm.
that to me sounds similar.
Yeah.
And what I found when AEW started was what they were doing was it was kind of a mixture of Ring of Honor if it had a better budget, but also what NXT was trying to do.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
with
And see, and I
Triple
love
H,
that era of NXT. Like Black and
yeah,
Gold NXT was so special, and it was my favorite thing. Besides, like, because I really love the
until
205.
AEW started. It changed when AEW started,
Right,
but
exactly.
yeah,
So, but that period of, that several year period of NXT Black and
yeah,
Gold it was my favorite. And yes, and you're right, AEW was basically what, it's what NXT was trying to be, and AEW just
yeah.
had the budget behind it.
The budget, and they were able to bring in people, and they didn't have to
Yeah,
worry about having Vince over top saying, "No, I don't like this
right.
guy. I don't like that guy," or "I
Exactly.
like this guy a lot, and I'm bringing him. I'm stealing him."
Right. Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. So I do think that, and yeah, and they're going into big arenas, and and doing these shows across the country, and you're seeing that, hey, it's not just me. There's,
Yeah.
like 10,000 people going to these shows. There's a million
Yeah.
people watching on Wednesday nights. Like,
Yes.
and yeah, and now you're part of a community, and
Mhm.
you all love this thing, and you all realize that wrestling is more than just what WWE had been telling you it was for the last 20 years.
Right. Yes,
So,
exactly.
in terms of the actual show, you talked about Cody, and I will say that for me, and I don't know how
Mhm.
anyone else feels, but I've been a big Cody Rhodes fan since day one.
Me too.
Like day one, literally, like when he first showed up in WWE,
Yes, same.
until like Stardust, I didn't really like that period.
See,
And
I love I love
oh, okay.
Stardust.
And when
But
he
that's fine. I
first,
know Stardust is like either he seems like he's one of those characters that either you loved him or you hated him. But like
and you
I
liked him,
wasn't crazy about dashing Cody Rhodes,
I
but I
love
know a lot
dashing
of
Cody
people, yeah, see
Rhodes.
a lot of people loved him. And
Yeah,
so yeah.
yeah,
But Cody's so good that Cody can
yeah,
just make everything like that's like if Stardust was given to anybody else, I think it would have, I mean, I guess for some people it did
yeah.
fail, but if it was
Well,
given to
he
anybody
loved
else,
it. Like, it was his
yeah.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was
When
like, and I think that's why I probably liked it so much is because I could tell like that he like what he was doing with it.
when he left WWE and he started the indie thing, I wasn't into it. And I wasn't liking him. And it was mainly, I don't think it was that he left WWE. It was just I wasn't really like I wasn't getting what he was doing. And
Yeah.
he would show up on these shows, and he would often have like, I used to make a thing. It was like the 3-star Cody Rhodes match. Like, it was
Right.
just he would just do his thing. And then at some point it clicked. And it
Mhm.
was during the build up to All In, and that's when I
Mhm.
started getting into Cody again, and I remembered, okay, this is the Cody I love.
Right.
And when he won the title, at that show, for
Yes.
me, that meant more to me. As great as this story was that he did in WWE and all the money
Mhm.
that show made,
Yep.
17 and a half mil 35 million between 2 nights, and
Right.
this great story and everything,
Yep.
that story to me meant way more. Even it
Yes.
was kind of the same story.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, no, you're right, and I would
Yeah.
agree with that, like, I love that Cody was able to finish his story, and I love all of the I do love this story, but yes, because I think it was part of it was because WWE told him, like, "You can't be the
Yes.
star," like, you and Cody was like, "Well, I will show you," and he did, and
And he
that was
earned it.
yes, he earned it, and that was
Yeah.
people weren't doing the things that Cody was doing
No.
on the indies, he was doing something he was blazing his own path, which I think was a lot of, like, and I know people tease him about, how he talks about his dad and so much, but it is so
Yeah.
much a part of him that pushed him on this journey and pushed it when they told him like we will never see you as a main eventer, and then Cody took it personally and he made himself a main eventer, and we've seen obviously how that has played out up until this
Yeah.
point. But yes, I would agree with that, for me as well, that him winning at All In and winning the NWA championship meant more.
What else from that show really sticks out for you?
The Kenny Omega match with Penta,
Oh,
that
yeah.
with Penta L Zero, I loved the match itself, but then that's also when Chris Jericho showed up. He was not supposed to
Yeah.
be there because Fozzy was playing a show, how many ever miles, it was like that
Yeah.
several thousand
Tony
miles
flew him
away.
in or something, right?
Yeah, he flew
Mhm.
in dressed as Penta,
Yeah.
attacks Kenny post match, ripped, and then like I started figuring it out, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
Jericho!" And like everybody, we all kind of started to figure it out at the same time, and then he does the reveal, and we were like, "Oh, it is him!" And that place erupted, and then
Yeah.
it set up a match. And I was trying to remember what the match was set up for, and I was just looking. So
Well,
set up a match on the Jericho Cruise.
oh, okay. Okay. So it was after they had done the match at the Dome.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, because that was
I think
2018.
so.
Yeah, because that's was basically that's how Tony Khan got involved was because of
Yes.
Jericho and Omega, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. And so like
And
that
and then
definitely
was
sticks
this the
out.
show that the main event got cut in time because
Yes.
somebody
Because
went long?
the
It was
main event,
it was Marty Scurll,
Okada
right?
and Marty Scurll
Yeah.
went 13 minutes long. And then, which
Yeah.
saying that in 2024 is
Yeah.
insane. But at the time, Marty Scurll was really, really, I mean, clearly Okada was, but Marty Scurll was really
Yeah.
popular and really hot
Yeah.
on at the time. So, but yeah, saying that today is crazy. But yeah, the main event was, which was really great. It was
It
the
was the
Golden
Bucks
Elite.
and the Lucha Bros, right?
No, it was the Golden Elite, which was the
Oh.
Bucks and Kota Ibushi versus Rey Mysterio, Bandito,
Oh.
and I think was it Phoenix? I think it was
That sounds
because
right.
yes,
Yeah.
and so that was when Ray was doing
Right,
indie
Ray,
stuff,
yeah.
and it was
Yeah, and
we thought like, okay, so we thought maybe he was gonna go to AEW when it was finally announced that that AEW was gonna be a thing, and then he went back to WWE because he wanted to be there with Dominic when he came up and all that stuff. And so sometimes that's
yeah.
another one of those what ifs, like what if Rey Mysterio signed with AEW in the beginning, like what would have happened with that?
Oh.
Like
Maybe they get Dom,
yeah,
who knows?
right?
Yeah, maybe Dom is hooked. Um,
Maybe.
yeah. Yeah, the 2 Rays teamed up, that's right. Man, I'm just looking at this card now. Yeah, like I said, I watched it not that long ago, but
You
yeah,
know, I
so
haven't.
much.
It's funny. I haven't watched it since then, and I not on purpose. I just haven't. And then my friend, I was actually talking to some friends tonight because my friend said he bought the DVD, but he never watched it because he was at the show as well. He ended up flying in separately from us, and we ran into him at Sarcast of with all the people there. I ended up running into a good friend of mine, and then but then I think it's on Honor Club.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
think it
believe it
is.
is with the
Yeah.
Joey Ryan match taken out, I think.
That's what we
Thank
were trying to
goodness.
figure out with
Yeah,
the DVD was if it because he wasn't in a match. He came at the end because I was trying to
yeah,
remember. So it was Hangman versus Joey Janela
yeah,
in a street fight, and that's when they had the Cracker Barrel barrels
yeah,
around,
yeah,
and they did that. And then after the match, Joey Ryan came back from the dead and
yeah, and I think
all
they
that
just
stuff.
I did, like, on the version I watched, I think it was on Daily Motion,
Mhm.
and it was they did show that part, so I was kinda,
Okay.
but,
Yeah, it definitely is
and
something.
and
Yeah,
even
looking
Marty
back at it,
Scurll is not somebody people wanna watch these
right, and
days.
that's what we were
Yeah,
trying to remember was if
yeah.
they left Okada Skrull on the DVD or if it was taken out, but I think Joey Ryan was taken off the DVD, but I think the Marty Skrull match was left
When
in.
when I watched the BTEs, they hadn't eliminated those guys from the shows yet. So I did
Mhm.
actually see all that, but they were starting to remove it as I was
Yes.
getting to it. So I was like,
Yeah.
literally, like I'd watch it, and then 2 days later, the episode I just watched was gone. Like, so yeah, it was,
Yeah.
but it was
That
kind of
was a
cool to
wild time.
see. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And they had
um,
like the over the budget battle royal, and the thing that sticks out to me the most is that was the one where Jordan Grace eliminated
right,
Brian Cage. Like that's one of the memories that sticks out
the
because
first
that
time
was
I ever saw her.
yeah, I think I'd only seen her a few times since then, or maybe a couple. And
Yeah.
that still like that's when people think of when I think about All Out. That's one memory that I always think of is she eliminated him, and that was an insane feat.
Um, yeah, there was it was the list I got here, and it was number one contender match for the ROH title, yeah. And
Yes,
Flip Gordon won, and that was another one because he was trying to get on the show, and they
yes,
couldn't get him on the show, so he had to be Chico El Luchador.
yes. And I'd
And
forgotten about Chico
yeah,
El Luchador until I was looking at the show a little while
yeah.
ago, and I forgot that that's how they got him in. And I was like, oh, that's right, because Cody wouldn't book him.
You know who was
that
in this? You know who was in this? Damian Priest, current
Yes, I
WWE
saw that. It
World
was talking about
Champion. Yeah,
Punishment Martinez, and I had forgotten
yeah.
all about that. I was like, my sister didn't
Wow,
remember
me
either.
too.
I was like, "Did you remember?" And she was like, "No, I don't remember
No.
Punishment Martinez being in this."
No, because I think the version when I watched this, I don't think I watched the pre-show.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I didn't see Bully Ray was in it, Ethan
Yeah,
Page,
Bully
Colt
Ray went
Cabana,
really
like,
far
yeah,
into it.
Cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So,
It
and that
was,
was on
yeah.
free TV. It was like
Yeah.
WGN or something, right? Yeah.
Yes, and that's how 0 Hour started. That's where that
Yeah.
came from was
Yeah.
and then they brought it back they carried that into obviously now they've changed the buy-in except for
Yeah.
Double or Nothing, but they've changed it to 0 Hour because that's where it came from was 0 Hour was that first
Wow.
the pre-show for all the way back to All In to kind of pay tribute to that, which was
Wow.
really cool.
So okay, so we're almost out of time, but
Yeah.
if you people have listened to or watched the show before, I always end it, and I want to ask you with if there's anything in recent fandom that has made you happy, and I will preface this by saying you can't say Sting, and you can't say Cody at WrestleMania, so it's got to be
Okay.
something else.
I'm trying
Those
to
are too
think.
easy.
I would say probably oh, man, there's so many good things that happen, especially at Dynasty, because Dynasty was just such a great show, and, like, seeing
Yeah.
Willow was amazing, obviously Swerve, but I think actually I'm gonna go with the Ashe show. I went to the Ashe
Oh,
show last Friday. That's a local promotion here that Darius Lockhart is running. They had their
love Darius.
yeah, me too. And so I've been fortunate enough to go to all 3 and just being in that environment and seeing what they're doing and the people that like Kevin Knight was on that card, Sonny Kiss was there, Darius Carter, Billy Dixon, Tootie Lynn was there,
Ooh,
Promise Braxton, just like the King Bees were on this card. Kiera Hogan was there. They set up a match coming up for the next show. Kiera Hogan and Tasha Stills are going to team up. They brought Tasha Stills in, so it's just really fun to kind of just be and kind of reminds me of like before AEW was a thing where everybody's just is there because they love wrestling and they want to give it a platform. And that's why, I keep going obviously to support Darius because I'll support him with anything he does. But the wrestling is really great. And I've been fortunate enough to do media with them. Like their very first show, the main event was Aja Kong versus Trish Adora. And
oh
I
wow.
got yeah, and I got to do media and I got to sit in the media room right across from Aja Kong and I got to ask her a question and she like looked right at me. And so like that's been a really cool thing to kind of experience that like on a, on a level where, it's the very beginning and to be a part of it and to see it grow. And so I've really enjoyed that a lot.
So I will say for me, and I think I've used WWE ones a few times, so I want to stay away from them. And I will say one is kind of every time Will Ospreay ends a match and doesn't get hurt, I'm really happy because I'm
That's
like,
very good. That's a good one.
yeah. But for me, and you kind of brought it up, I would say Willow. And I'm not going to say when she won the title. That was huge. And that was nice. And it was a great match.
Sure.
Well, it wasn't actually, it was not really a great match because Julia was hurt and it was a quick
Hmm.
match.
Yes.
But it was on Wednesday when she came out for her celebration.
Yes.
And she was so happy and the fans were so happy for her. And
Yes.
then Mercedes comes out and Mercedes is this big star. And, and right away, the instinct reaction from everybody is to cheer her. But within 30 seconds, they remembered, oh, yeah, we like Willow. We don't really care about you very much. This is her moment. And
Right.
you could tell she sensed it. And her confidence and the way she spoke to Mercedes and she owned that stage with
She
Stokely
did.
Hathaway out there, with Chris Statlander, with
Hmm.
Mercedes. It was Willow. And
Yes.
she was to me on a show where Tony Khan, took a TK driver and where, like Will Ospreay won this gauntlet match that was insane.
Yeah.
And Swerve, we saw him for the first time to win the title. She was the star of the show.
Yes.
And I was so happy for Willow and so happy, like not happy, that's not the right word, optimistic for her future. And I
Yeah.
really hope that they see it too. And,
Yes.
and instead of just doing the predictable thing of having, Mercedes, she puts Mercedes over and then maybe like 6 months later she gets her win. I hope
Right.
maybe she wins.
Yeah.
There's Mercedes doesn't need this win. Willow needs this win.
She does. And
Yeah.
to win
And
to beat her twice and to beat her twice, but to beat her when she's healthy this
yes,
time and
yes,
does it and she's
yeah,
not winning it because Mercedes got injured in the match. Like I
yeah.
think yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, so
Definitely.
hopefully we see that, but I suspect we're probably going to see her best friend turn on her, and
Probably
but
so.
whatever. I'll be there live, and it'll be good. I get to see
Oh,
Mercedes
yeah. Oh,
first
man,
match.
that's gonna be
Yeah,
great that you're getting
it's
to see
going to be
that
a
live.
great card. It's already, and I have heard some stuff, and yeah, and
Yeah.
man, all out this year. Oh, I got it. It's going to be amazing. I just what I've heard, just yeah. But yeah, so we'll be happy then, and we were happy today, and I
Yes.
was happy to talk to you. And next week, I don't have my guest quite lined up yet, but if I do, it's somebody you're all going to enjoy. It's somebody you all know. So look forward to that. Probably back in the regular time slot next week, Monday at 11 Eastern. But if not, I'll update you all on Twitter. I want to thank Sam for taking the time to join me today. And yeah, tune in next week. Usually Mondays at 11 p.m. Eastern. Do you want to get any plugs in before we go?
Yeah, I'll just say we check out Power Bombshells on Sundays. We're live at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Every once in a while, we do some early stuff like pre-shows, but we're usually here Sundays at 1 o'clock on this very network.
Awesome. And then you can check out her writing at DDT, Daily DDT, and what was the other
And
one?
Wrestling Inc.
Wrestling Inc. Yeah,
Yep.
Wrestling Inc. So check out her WWE coverage. That's like, yeah, that's special. I think I'm going to Google that right now. All right. So for Sam, I've been Paul, and this has been The Joy of Wrestling.